A new report from the Sutton Trust called Parliamentary Privilege looks at the educational and career backgrounds of MPs. But will the makeup of Parliament after the next election be more diverse? Let's take a look at some of the findings from this report. It found that those new candidates with a chance of winning, a third had been privately educated. And more of the Conservative hopefuls, a total of 49%, had been to a fee-paying school. Labour was 19%. Labour's total still exceeds the 7% of the general population that are privately educated. That's 7% above the age of 12 or 13. The research also covered university places. It found that 55% of candidates went to Russell Group universities. These are the top universities in the country. And within that Russell Group, 19% attended Oxford or Cambridge. Of all the candidates, UKIPers were least likely to have gone to university at all. Just 35% had taken a university place. I'm joined by the chairman of the Sutton Trust, Peter Lampl, to discuss this. I guess this isn't too surprising, is it? We've known our politicians come from a particular kind of background for quite a while now.
I think that's right. What this has shown is that the next Parliament will be very similar to the current Parliament.
It doesn't get better.
It doesn't get any better. And the reason it matters is that, you know, politicians are supposed to represent their constituents, and given they generally come from a pretty privileged background, that isn't the case.
36% of the current cabinet and 22% of the shadow cabinet were privately educated.
Yeah.
Does it matter?
I think it does. I think we should have more diversity. This isn't just a politics question. We've looked at every walk of life in this country. And if you look at judges, you look at medics, you look at journalists, it's over 50%. I mean, we are completely, and it just goes on and on from that list. So this is a much wider issue than politics. This is an issue of that we are essentially the people that get to the top in this country, unlike you and me, have been privately educated.
But do you not despair at times? I mean, there is a consensus in this country now in favour of meritocracy. There's a consensus in favour of social mobility. And yet the more politicians on the left and the right talk about it, the worse it gets.
I agree. And government really needs to take a step forward here. We do a lot of work at the Sutton Trust. We have thousands of kids every year go to summer schools at the top universities. We have access to law, medicine, the profession program. So we're looking to double our effort in the next 4 years. But that's not enough. Government needs to do much more. Government needs to make access to schools a lot easier. The good schools are generally the grammar schools, and the top comprehensives are very much controlled by well-off people. And then the big thing they need to do, which up until 1976, 2/3 of the private schools were state-funded. And what
the
direct grant schools, and there were local schemes as well. I was the beneficiary of a scheme in Surrey. Reigate Grammar School was a private school, 100% funded by Surrey County Council. It's now 100% fee-paying. So we could, and we have done quite a lot of work on this, we could open up the private schools in a very efficient way.
But if you're a bright kid from a poor background, how do you get to a decent school? Because there are very few grammar schools left, and they're all pretty much in middle-class areas in Kent and Bucks. So you don't live near there. There are some excellent state schools, but a large number of them tend to be in places where, because they are good, the house prices have risen around them. So in a way, your mum and dad buy a house there, they can afford it. If you're a poor kid, you don't have a mum and dad that can do that. So how do you?
And in our day, there wasn't a problem. Now there's a huge problem. The answer is, you know, if you look at the top state schools, as you said, they're comprehensives in leafy areas. And an even bigger factor are the faith schools. If you look at the top 200 state schools, they are faith schools and comprehensives in leafy areas. Then you've got your grammar schools, which have got free school meals of less than 3%. When the national average is 17%, and then you move into the private schools, they're totally out of reach.
Are there lessons from London? Because there was a time 25 years ago, say, when London schools seemed to be seriously underperforming. The latest figures suggest that now London schools are among, the state schools I'm talking about, are among some of the best in the country.
Yeah, London's done well. A lot of it's due to the fact that it's an ethnic population that are very high achieving.
The parents want their kids to get a good education.
Their kids to get a good education.
And too many British parents don't.
But I think, absolutely, I still think we need to crack the socially selective school system that we have in this country, which is really holding back a lot of bright kids from low and middle income backgrounds who can't get into academic schools and therefore are not candidates for Oxford and Cambridge and the Russell Group universities that lead to the top positions in politics, in law, medicine, and so on.
What is to be done?
All schools should be academic. All schools should be able to give children the education they need. The thing about public schools is they encourage a culture of leadership. If you go to a good public school, you are taught that you are a master of the universe or a mistress of the universe, that you will inherit the earth, and this is the culture, and that's why people pay enormous sums of money to send their children to those schools. The fact is, if you go to a state school, the chances are you won't be part of a debating society, you won't be encouraged to speak up, you will be told that, you know, it's okay, just try and get your CSE
Well, in some state schools. I mean, I've been to state schools where...
generalise.
There are state schools where they've got great debating societies where you are taught to speak up.
80% are classed by Ofsted as good or outstanding.
Hang on a second. We're talking about people going into Parliament, so we're talking about people probably aged over 30, OK? So we're talking about the education system as it was in relatively recent years, but nevertheless significant. And I think that you could quite. I mean, I went to a technical college as it used to be, as it used to know, and we were, it was, do your makeup, make your hair look nice. But so two things. So first of all, improve education across the board, and secondly, and I think this is quite important, stop all those people who are sending their children to private school from sending them to private school, and give them the impetus to want to send them to the state system.
How do you stop?
Well, you make the state schools good.
You can't do that.
I've had politicians saying that for as long as I've been interested in this.
People will always then select to go private because they've got the money to do it. There's a huge imbalance in spending. You'd probably...
But that's irrational.
Hold on, let me hear from Kevin.
No, there's a huge imbalance. And I just wonder, Peter, can you really crack, right, what the former Education Secretary, Michael Gove, describes a morally indefensible system whereby what your parents do will dictate where you get to in life, the fact that that opportunity tracks privilege. Can you just crack that in education, or do you have to see it as part of a wider problem?
Why is it getting worse? This has always been a problem, but it seems to be getting worse. I mean, I did a documentary about 4 or 5 years ago in which I called Posh and Posher, which I concluded that someone from my background now would probably find it tougher than I did. I didn't find it that tough.
And mine.
But you had grammar schools.
No, I understand that. So, and that's not an issue I wish to reopen at this stage. But what I'm asking is, for me, it just seems to have got tougher.
Yeah, although the number of MPs who are privately educated is down on the post-Second World War era. But it does, I agree, social mobility, and this is contested, but it does feel as if it's slowed, if not stopped. That's contested. But can you really, can I really
just
break
go
through
over
that without a big shift in wealth and power to people?
First thing is, you open up the private day schools, which is 6% of kids go there. You make those open access. Dominic Raab mentioned it in an article in the Times this morning, our scheme for open access. Then you have to do something about the grammar schools, because they're still very good schools, but they're socially selective. And you need to stop you need to have a level playing field in terms of the grammar schools. Then on the comprehensives, which is the big thing, we're in favour of ballots, that you actually...
As in Brighton?
Not in Brighton, but per school. Brighton was a district. But if I've got a school, I've got twice as many people applying to that school than there are places. Is it fairer to decide if someone lives next to the school or 100 yards away, or is it fairer to put all the names in a hat and do a ballot? Opinion polls say, actually, people say ballots are fairer.
And that way you get round the business of parents being able to buy the house.
Exactly.
OK.